On today's episode of The Dead Life, I want to talk about heaven. What is heaven? If we're creating some of our versions of heaven in the physical world, what will our heaven look like? You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison. Make sure it's spelled right, and it's my face in the profile picture. On my Facebook fan page, you can binge my videos on YouTube, and you can see me live in October in Irvine, California, Denver, Colorado, and Chicago, Illinois. In 2023, I'm coming to Dallas, Texas, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Nashville, Tennessee. For ticket information, go to AllisonDubois.com. Joe, let's talk about heaven.
All right. Thanks for bringing me on. We've had a lot of questions about this over the years.
Yeah, I know. It seems never ending. I think I'm not being clear enough in my books what heaven looks like, but I try.
You know, I can kind of, what I think is that you see what you see all the time, and you don't realize that we don't, a lot of people don't. Like, I don't see, people don't,
right.
Dead people don't whisper in my ear too often, once in a while, I suppose.
Well, I wish I had an artist on staff. I could just tell them what it looks like and they could paint it over and over again, different versions of heaven. Wouldn't that be cool?
I think there's even really simple questions like, do you see heaven, or do they describe it to you?
I see it through their eyes.
All right.
So
there's one big question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see it, but only because they allow me to see their heaven, what their heaven looks like. And when I do private readings, I describe it to the person that I'm reading, and so that they can visualize it along with me and see their dad or their child in that place. And then they understand why. Men that were in the military are often in a bar in another time with a jukebox with all the guys that didn't come back from war and the ones that did make it back from war, and they all get together, and the ones that didn't make it back are happy for the ones that did, and the ones that did tell the other ones what their life was like, and they sit there and they just sort of connect, and it's cool, and they have their cheeseburgers and beers.
So you describe it. Are you in your mind in that bar with them?
Yeah.
Or are you, okay. So you're like a memory or like a dream, or like.
They're letting me eavesdrop is the best way I could put it. They're letting me eavesdrop on their moments. And I'll describe the bar often to a widow who lost their husband, and it'll be the bar that they met in. Mm-hmm. I have that happen all the time. And they mention food items that the bar was known for, which I kind of love because I'm a foodie. So it's a win-win.
But like you say, they mention, like, you hear it in your mind or in your ear?
Well, they're saying it to me almost like I'm standing in the bar next to them, and they're telling me what's good. I know that sounds weird.
And that's why you get when you do relay the message, a lot of times you'll get an inflection of the person. It's because you just heard them say it. So you kind of say it just the way they said it.
I often will pick up their accent, the words that they use. And every week I have people say, that's exactly what he used to say, or just exactly what she used to say. And I have to reiterate to my client, no, they just did say it. I'm just a secretary repeating what they said.
Right.
I'm just a vessel. That's all I am.
That's a lot to take in.
And then other people have versions of heaven that are totally different than the whole bar falling in love scene. Falling in love is often one they go back to, where they fall in love all over again with the person that was the love of their life. They often do go back to when their kids were small.
Well, little kids are fun.
It's when their life changed, and they often will use the words, they'll say it's when their life started, is when they fell in love, and then when they had their kids. And so they'll go back to an age where the children were being born,
right,
and they were newly in love or honeymoon phase, and they enjoy all of it, raising the kids. I've brought through a lot of athletes and actors and comedians that they go back to sort of the highlight of their career before things went bad. And that's sort of beautiful too. And it's not that they're being void of love and connection by going back to those moments that are their glory days. It's that it was the highest level their soul reached. Like there's this buildup inside of your soul when you reach some sort of a pinnacle in your career. And some people have more exciting careers than other people. And they'll go back to a highlight in their life when their soul was soaring, when they felt on top. And I can understand that. And I don't find it vain at all. I think that it's their soul had been working towards that moment since birth. So why shouldn't they claim that moment?
And when you reach certain levels, it has to be a passion, but also maybe a calling. And so you're feeling that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do.
What you were here for.
What you're here for. So yeah.
I bring through doctors all the time that come through with their patients, the ones they lost and the ones that they saved, and both thank them for trying, and being there. So there's different heavens. It's just very cool. It depends on our energy vibe. Our heaven's going to be totally different. My heaven will be so different from somebody else's who maybe took a different path.
The irony is that you're not a big fan of crowds, but my thinking is you're going to have a lot of friends in heaven.
Yeah, but they're going to respect my borders and boundaries and not be in my space.
One at a time.
Yeah, no, it'll be great. I have my own versions of heaven. I know you do too. And I'll be seeing you.
Oh yeah, no.
So do you want to play our first clip?
Yeah, let's get on into it.
Hey, Allison, this is Danielle from Portland, Oregon. I have 2 questions for you. My father is unfortunately on hospice from cancer, and a lot of your show has brought me great comfort and affirmed things that I've always felt innately. My question for you is, the other day I had a dream about my dad, and it was one of those very vivid dreams that felt as if somebody was visiting me, but my dad is still alive and here. And my dream was that he was whole, he was active, and he's like, hey, I'm fine. If this would have happened after he'd passed, I would have realized that was him visiting me. However, I'm a little perplexed and wonder what it means. Since he's not dead, he's still here. I can still talk with him. He's not whole and healthy, but I'm just curious what your thoughts on that dream are. And then my second question involves miscarriage. My sister and I are both blessed to have 2 boys each. And in between each of our older sons and our younger sons, my sister had a miscarriage and I had an ectopic pregnancy. For my sister, she very much feels like she has another baby up in heaven in the afterlife. But for me, I really felt like that soul that I had with my ectopic pregnancy, that I had to have surgery for and to have the tube removed, came back to me. I really wanted that little soul to come back to me if I were to be blessed with another child, and I was. What are your thoughts on our perceived differences in our loss? Can she have a baby in heaven? And for me, maybe not, or maybe I'm wrong. I know that there's no exact right or wrong answer, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that as well. Thank you so much for all that you do for everyone. You're so appreciated. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay. No complication, a twofer here, right?
Well, I think it's all related. I think it's, where is the line between heaven and earth? And
yeah, but it's a broad subject. Yeah, so let me just start with having the dream about her dad that was whole, and he's in hospice right now. It's very simple. Somebody who died that's connected to you, who's going to be receiving your dad when he passes, is showing you what he's going to look like on the other side, is showing you how vibrant and whole he's going to be, but also that he's still going to be able to communicate with you. So you're being given a glimpse into the future. Simple as that. Do you have any questions on that before I go on to our second part?
Well, so he doesn't have one foot in heaven. It's actually the other person that's coming to get him.
It's the other person that's going to come for him, that's letting her know where he's going, what state he'll be in, and that he'll be able to come through to her.
Yeah. No, okay, got it.
Okay. So as far as the sisters and the ectopic pregnancy and miscarriages, and I know it's a question a lot of people ask. I did do a podcast on God and babies and those topics before for anybody who wants to go back and listen to those. But as far as Danielle's view of it, I see it in this very much the same way. That soul finds a way into the family. It just, the body that it was given couldn't sustain it, or the mother couldn't sustain the body of the child and the soul that time around. It doesn't mean they don't find a way into the family. So Danielle's child did. Now, as far as her sister goes, that's perspective. Her sister has a different perspective of the other side. I see it very much the way Danielle sees it. Her sister, I don't know if it makes her feel better to think that the child is just on the other side. And sometimes they are for a while, waiting for another body to come into the world and into the family that can sustain it. So I guess what it comes down to is, does Danielle's sister want to have another child? Because you're pretty much giving them a way in. And it's why children that you have later will feel so familiar to you, as though, they'll feel, I don't want to say special, but there's a stronger energy about them, something familiar to you. So I think Danielle's got that connection with the child that she was blessed with later. Her sister is in a place of waiting. It seems like a holding pattern. I hope that she is able to recognize that the soul that couldn't make it in will find a way into the family one way or another, either through another child of hers or a grandchild in the future. So it's not that they're not given other options into the world. They are. And they seem to be sort of vibing with certain, like a family, as they know they belong in that family.
That's what I was just going to ask. It's like, it sounds like they belong in that family.
Right.
And it's not that they're going to be in another country or maybe a neighbor across the street and they could just be, I don't know.
So they may have been tied to the family in the past and historically tied to the family and maybe went back in for another round. I don't have all of the answers. I only know what I've seen and what I've been told by the other side.
Sure.
They have been very clear that babies that don't come to fruition or that die before they develop a full personality, which is why I don't bring through children younger than 2. 2 and older. 2 seems to be when the personality is very much there. And it's not that under 2 can't be on the other side functioning. It's just more limited. They'll show me cereal or, their doll or their teddy bear.
Right.
So they just don't have as much of the life experiences to come through with information wise in a reading to make it a full reading is all. As far as their sister goes, I hope she's able to come to terms with that the soul of her child will find a way into the family and that will bring her a little bit of peace.
And on the other side of that, though, you say that when you do a reading, you can always connect with the person you're asked to connect with. So that kind of leaves the question, how long would you be, I think you know where I'm going with the question, in that if a baby or even younger goes to heaven and then comes back right away, well, if you went to do a reading for him, which you don't do readings for that young children, but if you did, would they not be there? Or you would just get the feeling, no, they've been born. They're here.
So are you saying if they already reincarnated? Is that what you're saying? If they already came back in?
So if you did a reading for these 2 women.
Yeah.
And they asked about their baby.
And one's already come back.
And one's already come back.
I'd tell her it already came back. So it'd be that simple. They're not there once they come back.
Okay.
That's how it works. There wouldn't be an energy source over there representing her baby. Okay. There'd be a nothingness for me to tap into, which doesn't happen unless somebody's come back. And the interesting thing is people who've lived full adult lives, I can always bring them through. So that's why I don't believe that we can reincarnate until after everybody we love has died and they're on the other side. Maybe then you come back for another round, but until then you're in the ethereal protecting them, acting as some sort of a barrier between them and danger. When there's room for intervention for them to be saved, you become that line of defense for them. So I know it's complicated, but it's how I see it.
Sounds like another job.
Yeah. They like it, though. They like protecting us.
Of course. So shall we move on to Randy?
Yep.
Hi, Allison. This is Randy from Maine. I'm a longtime fan. Everything you do is amazing, and thank you. Seriously, just thank you. I have a question about if a loved one passes and let's say they have emotional issue or they're just heavily depressed or chemical imbalance, how do we identify what their energy or intentions truly are or reconnect with them? I mean, I understand that when they pass, they're supposed to be rid of all of that and free to experience their heaven, but how do we get to know that part of them again and what's real versus what was, their true feelings in regards, to maybe their own emotional behavior and different things. I hope you know what I'm saying. I mean, I'm sure you do. Anyway, thank you so much for everything you do. You're amazing. And be well. Bye.
Well, thank you, Randy. I got a hype girl.
Everybody needs a hype girl.
Everybody needs a hype girl. It really comes down to this for me to simplify it. When I do a reading and I bring somebody through who had mental problems, chemical imbalances, depression, anything along those lines, no matter what the death was, the underlying energy of them is that. They come through first with that energy so I can identify them and know that that is who they are. And so I'm describing it to the living client and saying, for instance, he's making me feel depressed. I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. I feel like I'm self-medicating. There's certain things they'll say to let me know that they have had a chemical imbalance, but they'll come through in that form, in that energy, so that I can identify them with the client. Once that's happened and the messages have been relayed, they adjust their energy so that I can feel what it is now. Then I share that with the client so that they can understand and put themselves in the place of what that energy will feel like when it comes through to them. It's going to feel like a healthy version of the person they miss. So the energy vibration, the frequency is much higher because they're coming through whole and vibrant again, void of anxiety, void of depression, void of any mental defect that they may have had in the physical world. It's interesting because that's the same as when somebody dies old. When somebody's old, they'll come through with older energy, so I know they lived a full life. It's how they convey that to me. They don't show me all their wrinkles. They show me their energy. They share their energy with me and maybe a hospital bed and say things such as, I was proud and I didn't want to be taken care of. I didn't want to be in assisted living. The best part of my life was over. I was ready to go. They say that often, because they lived a long time and they knew the best was behind them. It's the same. It's an identifying mark. That's all it is. So they're going to come through with whatever state they were in at the time that they passed, just for identification purposes. But that's not necessarily where their energy stays, because old people never stay old.
Excuse me.
Bless you. They always go back to being young. Did you take an allergy pill today? I told you to take an allergy pill like every freaking day. Come on, we live in Arizona. Seriously.
A lot of plants. I guess I guess that's the perfect segue. When I come through, I won't be sneezing.
Well, fantastic. Okay, so thank you, Randy, for asking that question. I think it was a really insightful question to ask.
That's a good question.
So who's next?
Nancy.
Hi, Allison. My name is Nancy, and I'm in New York, and I watched every episode of Medium. I'm so happy that I found you on YouTube. My question is, I want to understand why there are so many spirits stuck in this realm. I don't understand why they don't move on, and I thought a lot more were up in heaven versus attached to this realm. And I need to understand that. You know, I have several family members that passed away in consecutive years. My stepmom, my aunt, and then my dad. And I would really hate to know that they're stuck in this realm. I hope they're in some better place. And I've always been very attracted to the metaphysical. I don't think I have abilities. It would be cool if I could. I think I'd have a better understanding. I do sense things, or people tell me things, and then I'm able to kind of explain it and give it meaning. But that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Nancy. Stuck here. A lot of people think of them as stuck here. People who pass, who love us, aren't stuck here. They stay because we're their heaven, which is why I titled
That's the book.
My book. So we are their heaven. So that people could understand the reason that they stick around is because their heaven isn't complete without us. They wait for all the people they love to cross so that they can have their complete heaven. They're not stuck here. They enjoy the chaos of our lives. I hear parents who passed all the time laugh their asses off at their daughters who wrangle their toddlers in their car in all the chaos of their lives. And the parents will come through and say, that's my favorite part of the day is when she's dropping them off to school because of the chaos. They don't have chaos on the other side. So they have to come into the physical realm to experience it. And it amuses them to no end, because what heaven is mostly going to be either a relived memory for them or a place of sort of contentment or even joy. I mean, it can be fun hanging out in a bar on the other side. A lot of people do that. A lot of people will come through saying they're in the smoking section because they were a smoker who told their kids after they died from emphysema they were going to go back to smoking on the other side, and they come through doing that, and their child laughs in the reading. So it really just depends. So that is what the other side is, but here is the magic right here in the physical world where babies are being born and life is messy and our hearts are broken and we have to wait to find out that that's the love of our life and that's who we're going to be with forever. But there was a heartbreak attached to it. That's a love story. They love witnessing life in the making. It's exciting to them. So the people who are seen in, for instance, old saloons or cemeteries are slightly different. So if you're talking about relatives or friends of yours and feeling like they're stuck here because of us somehow, what makes anyone think we have that kind of power over them? You know, I mean, they stay because we bring them joy and exhilaration in what could be, it can become monotonous being in heaven when everything feels right. So they need to sort of go into the shallow end of the pool from time to time, which is us, the physical world, just to get something slightly different than what they have over there. So while we're pining away in the physical world saying, oh, I can't wait, you know, to see everybody that I love on the other side and to feel whole and to be young again. Yes, that's all very wonderful. After you see the people you miss and you're around them for a long period of time in eternity, is there something going on over there?
No, it's all good.
Okay.
It's all good, yeah.
If you don't put your phone down while we're recording, I'm never having you on the show again.
It was our daughter. I was going to just tell her that we're recording.
Yeah,
you know?
okay.
Right.
Anyways.
And that's the magic of life, right? Isn't that what you're just saying? The
keeping it messy, Joe. Keeping it messy. So this is a hard question to answer. So if you could just stay like right here with me, that'd be awesome. So anyways, that is really the people who are in the saloons and in the historical places that are here are the ones who either there's an impression left behind from them and you're not actually interacting with the person's soul. You're experiencing an impression that was left behind in an intense moment where intense emotion left that impression behind. It could be one person in the scene. It could be more than one. It could be 3 people being murdered. And there's this indelible impression, this scene that's left behind. It could be the love of somebody's life being stabbed in front of them. And it leaves that indelible impression. It doesn't mean the people who have passed are those impressions. Those are different. They're not interactive. The way you know the difference between an impression is it'll just keep replaying on a loop. And when it comes to the ones that can be interactive, they're actually in the moment talking to you and interacting. Often they'll be tied to historical places because it is where they were the happiest. And it carries the same vibe because it keeps pulling the same kind of people to that bar.
Right.
And so it's got the reckless guy who thinks he's tough, that challenges everybody to pool. It's got the woman that's kind of a floozy, that's always there looking for love and getting her heart broken because she picks the wrong guy. I mean, this is a tale as old as time that just keeps replaying, and it amuses them. So sometimes they'll hang out in those places for that reason, but not out of torture.
Isn't that Toby Keith's song? I love this bar.
You know what? I hope I'll be at his bar on the other side when I cross. I'll be like, hey, Tobes, the music, right on. Sprechen Sie mi lengua. So,
no, that's great. I that is a really deep concept. And,
yeah.
And you really painted a great picture. Like
Thank you.
I can
there's so many different avenues on the other side when it comes to why do we still see them or why are they still here? Has more to do with them loving us or loving a vibe of a place than anything else. The ones that stay to enjoy the people they love, but also to protect us. They also worry about us, and often I'll have wives that I bring through telling their husbands they're not eating right. And that they need to.
You've had husbands tell their wives
yes.
to get the oil checked and things like that.
I have,
like
and the tires.
And the tires, right.
And he always took care of that. It's like, of course he did. He still is. So I hope that answers Nancy's question.
I think it does.
Okay. So it's Jasmine next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Allison. My name's Jasmine. I'm from California. I wanted to ask you a couple questions, mostly with reincarnation. I hear about reincarnation. I don't know if I believe that. And I'm just wondering if reincarnation is a thing, then what does that mean for the souls that are in heaven? You know, if, for example, if when my time comes and I pass over, and I go to heaven, am I going to get to see my loved ones if they are required to reincarnate, or is reincarnation a requirement of the soul so that they can evolve? I'm just wondering how all of that works. And also, you know, in terms of being with your soulmate on the other side, you know, if they're required to reincarnate, how do we get to be with them? And if somebody is reincarnated, how are you able to bring them through with your abilities if they were required to reincarnate? So anyhow, I hope all of this makes sense. There's just so much out there, but I appreciate you taking the time to hear my question, and thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, so that's a good question. Thank you, Jasmine from California. Reincarnation, very big subject that people ask about. So reincarnation is not required. when you die, if you choose to stay in the loop, sort of what I talked about earlier, where everything is as it should be, you can stay in that place.
Mm-hmm.
If your soul feels like there was something it didn't learn in the last lifetime, that it feels like it really needs in order to grow or to become the purest form of itself, if it feels like it needs to experience sacrifice or feels like it needs to experience, I never found the love of my life, I want that life, they'll come back. So when you go to the other side and you're seeing your relatives, in my experience, they wait until everybody they love has died so that there's some sort of balance in the family, sort of an understanding. This is what I need for evolution. I'll see you in another 80 years, sort of instance, which is fine. But I've not been in a situation where I couldn't bring somebody through that's died in the last 20 or 30 years. So I think there must be a great deal to do on the other side as far as understanding what happened to them, understanding, everything about their death and keeping us safe, the intervention that they wage for us, that they insert on our behalf. There's got to be a lot to do on the other side in order to get them to a point of wanting to come back for another round. I would imagine after a full lifetime, you're a little tired, maybe not quite ready to come back for another 50 years.
Well, and there's a bit of a catch-22. I just thought of it. If you have a loved one still alive, you'll want to be there for them.
Right, to help them cross.
And if you reincarnate, you'll lose a lot of memories and
sure.
You won't be able to be that same person. But if somebody didn't have loved ones left behind because they had a lonely life.
Maybe they had no children, never found a love of their life, and they want to jump right back in.
Maybe
but then there'd be nobody alive that wants to.
That's what I'm saying. The catch-22. There'd be nobody that's why you wouldn't have them in a reading because they're
exactly
right.
So I'd like to imagine there's a referee over there saying, okay, if you go back, this is what you're giving up. You're not going to be able to remember these people. You might have glimpses, and somehow you'll feel drawn to.
You think you're coached? You're not just a roll of the dice.
I think there has to be somebody who is the diplomat who shows you both sides of your choice. If you go back, this is what will happen, but this is what it might cost you.
Maybe that's what you'll do when you go over.
Oh. I hope I get retirement at some point. and then maybe showing them, if you stay, this is what you'll experience as well. And that can be great as well. You don't have to go back to Earth and take another hit. I mean, think about it. Some people sacrifice their 40 years of their life being a hospice nurse, where they're just entrenched in death. By the time they get to the other side, they might think, I think I want to lay by the pool for a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the idea of coming back to further evolve on a soul level might sound a little exhausting.
Yeah, you've told me many times you have no plans on coming back.
As opposed to somebody who maybe had anxiety and collected disability their entire existence, never really worked, never had relationships, didn't build on an energy level in life. They might need to come back because they didn't do anything in this life. So they're two totally different lived circumstances of life force, of what you choose to do with your time here. And people that choose to do nothing don't seem to understand they're not hurting the people around them. They're hurting themselves. You're wasting an entire lifetime, and that would be a shame. So as far as soulmates, I think it's a mutually agreed upon pact. If you have a soulmate and you decide if one wants to come back, I think the other would also have to decide to come back. And I do believe they can find each other over and over again in different lifetimes, which is why they feel so familiar and why I say you felt like home when you grabbed my hand in the beginning.
Right.
So I think some of them do make that pact to find their way back to one another and say, let's relive getting married and finding each other and the struggles and the children. And I want to do that again with you and coming back, but I can't see one coming back and the other not. I feel like soulmates they go together or they stay. So I hope that answers that. That's fascinating. It's
Raised more questions, but that's another episode, I think. So are we ready to move on to our final question from Doug?
Doug.
Hi, Allison. This is Doug. I'm calling from Fort Worth, Texas. I had a few questions, actually. The first one being, so I hear you, everything you talk about, everyone's version of heaven. I don't hear you talk much about, like, God, and I just kind of wondered how he fits into, what you do and the things that you've seen in, your life and all that. So does God play a present role, or is he not, as present as, everyone thinks that they are? Another thing, as far as the supernatural, and I've had a lot of friends tell me, not to dig into like ghosts and, hearing voices and stuff. They say it's witchcraft. I've heard a few friends tell me that. So I don't know. It's a little confusing for me. I just want to know what's your take on like witchcraft and compared to what you do, and then I don't know, any insight on that if you can give me. And actually, that's about it. So I don't know. What's your take on that? Thanks. Bye.
Okay. No big deal. Ghosts, God, and witches. Okay, Doug in Texas. So that's a lot to answer. First of all, whoever his friends are, you might consider getting some new ones. I'm just saying, people who are in the physical realm that think they know everything there is to know of what's good and bad, and they become the judge, jury, and executioner of other people's belief systems, I find them repelling. And I also find them to be unwise men, because a wise person would not assume they know everything. They'd want to go on that journey with Doug and learn about the truth behind it. I will say God is not easy to break down. It's a topic. I'll answer the best I can. On the other side, they often don't talk about religion in general. Sometimes they'll show a crucifix because they'll want their daughter to have it because it carries their energy, but that's an emotional reason to show it. Or the mom will be making challah bread. So I know she's Jewish. However, she's not talking about the religion. This is tied to family time, making memories. So it's sort of hard to separate all of this to be very clear on it. God feels like something that's a part of all of us, even bad people, which I know is hard to understand. I just find they have less God in them. And I feel like God has gotten this man in a robe, that's what people expect God to be. God became whatever people wanted God to be. I think it became everybody's version of whatever gives them peace of mind is their God. When I feel a force on the other side that watches over all of us, which it does, and tries to keep a balance on the good and bad, obviously much more powerful and insightful than any human being could be. I do believe in a God, that there's God. There's something calling the shots that's bigger than us. And why would we think that in any way on the other side, we're going to be able to go sit on God's lap and he'll be like, welcome home?
Because that's what we know as humans.
Right, I understand.
We have parents and they protect us.
You're taking a lot of doctrine that can be, and we're going to possibly have Father Nathan back maybe to talk about some of this.
Oh, he's coming. Yeah.
Which I'm very excited about. He's one of our top 5 leading up to my 100th episode. Very excited that he'll be coming on. So we're taught that biblically or in whatever doctrine people are raised on, and that becomes our visual of what the other side or what God is. And it doesn't mean in some way God can't also be a little bit of that. But I sort of sense that God sends us the people, for instance, a father that might be in the image of what we consider God, or what protects us, cares for us, loves for us. And you do sit on daddy's lap when you're a little kid, right? So I think there's a little God in the people that are put in our lives that are all versions of God. That's how I see God, but there's something bigger calling all the shots in the universe. And I don't know why some of the answers to some of the serial killers and the Putins and the people out there, the people who destroy countries and the greed and all of it. I don't have all of those answers, but I have to have faith that there is something out there, a force that does. And it's that faith that some people would say is blind. But if you don't have faith in life, your soul has nowhere to go. So it's a part of our growth. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
So you haven't seen God directly, but you've seen his reflections. Is that a way to put it?
In people.
In people.
Right.
In their actions.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a big one. Okay.
So
okay,
I don't want to go too long. I don't want people getting tired of this podcast. I know I've run over on time.
No, it was a good one. This is
okay.
Good, yeah.
So I'll quickly try and answer ghosts and witches. I know we clump them together in Halloween, but come on, people. I mean, we're technically all going to be ghosts. So
Right,
if we're all soulful and these beings that love and enjoy life, whether it's, putting your kid on your shoulders and giving him a day at the fair, and, we're these life forces out there, and then our body falls and can't hold our soul anymore. And our soul's sort of in our image still energetically, but the body couldn't sustain us. So, all ghosts are people who shed their old costumes, I guess, so to speak. I don't see ghosts and witches as the same. Spirits at one time were human. Mm-hmm. They were alive. That's what I bring through. Mm-hmm. Witches, they exist. Mm-hmm. Go on my Instagram. I got a number of them on there, and they're practicing. But let me break it down for people that are freaked out by witches, okay? They're not like Hocus Pocus in the movie where they're boiling children or want to shove them into
Just had to go right to
ovens.
boiling.
Heck yeah, I do, because that's a great Halloween movie, and I've got to set the stage because we're coming up falls around the corner. Yeah. Anywho, so with witches, they're the women who basically came over here and settled in, a lot of them were settled in West Virginia, and they were the women who delivered the babies, and they were granny magic is a good source if you want to find out more about witches, but they would deliver the babies. They grew herbs for healing purposes and pain relief, and they were sort of kitchen witches in a sense, where they would grow things, and people think of it as them making potions, but they're really just making like a salve so that your rash stops itching and such.
But other things are like the sage.
Sure, burning sage and sweetgrass to clear negative energy out of the space. This is really what modern day witches are. I think people think of dark magic more when they think of witches, and very few people practice the dark magic out there.
And I think of like New Orleans kind of with
voodoo,
right?
Sure.
And that is kind of, that's pretty dark.
That's set in Afro-Cuban beginnings to that. And yes, it can be a little dark just because it has to do with,
Santeria.
Santeria is different and dark for a different reason. We'll go into that another day if people want to know the difference between all of these. But voodoo with the Afro-Cuban background to it, they do animal, like they crucify animals and such, or cut the heads off chickens. Like that's that's sort of what people think of as more dark magic. The lighter witches are the ones that are just growing, plant rosemary by the gates so that dark energy doesn't cross your doorstep. It's more of that sort of practice. And a very good friend of mine practices it, Margaret Jameson at Granny Magic. And she's a straight shooter on the up and up, just grows stuff and makes these nice little, oils for people for protection or for love. And she's got a good heart. So it depends. You can't throw the word witch around because there are a lot of people out there that practice that in a very light and well-intending way to help people.
So I guess the thing is this, a lot of that question is rooted in superstition.
Right.
And rather than going by some straight rule that says this is that and that's black, is that you have to just judge each thing on its own merit.
Take people on a case-by-case basis as well. And yes. I believe in that. I find it fascinating. There's a lot of interesting historical writings on the, the Appalachian Grannies of West Virginia. And why a lot of churches even will have stained glass that's in this wheel form, which is supposed to be a protection wheel that actually dates back to Europe before people came over here that were being persecuted. So it's literally still being used in banks and churches.
Right.
And it would be what some people would consider superstitious, but other people believe in superstitions and err on the side of caution. So it's interesting.
And is it different than the medicine man in Native American culture where that's the way they healed?
Right.
It was more than just a physical healing. It was emotional. It was a spiritual. It was the entire.
And Native Americans have chanting, and people who practice some of the I guess you would consider the craft also have a sort of that, but you would consider it more of a spell.
Right.
So.
Oh, and prayers. We recite the same prayer.
Yep. So it just depends on if you're going to let words scare you. And as you had said, I think Hollywood's done a lot of probably of the damage to these people but these are, the Appalachian grannies thought that if you went to a hospital, you were going to die. So they believed in doing it right in the kitchen, right there in the house.
Nobody's died in my kitchen, but I know a lot of people that have died in that hospital. Right.
So because it was cleaner, I'm sure.
It's probably a lot cleaner. Right.
So I hope that answers it a little for you, Doug. I encourage you yes, it was a great question, to read up more on the Appalachian grannies to see how they sort of became the backbone of what people maybe would consider modern day witches. But most witches or people who are practicing the craft really are just people that have gardens and grow things to help you heal or to protect their home or protect someone they love. And for instance, Margaret Jameson's got a sachet that I gave to our girls that's on her website for their car. And it's got a little spell that you read, and it's got what she grew in her garden that's for protection, and they carry it in their car. Hey, I'll do whatever I can to keep our kids safe. I'm not above it. I'll try it. And so it's just kind of interesting. So people, before you draw a conclusion, look into witches. Ghosts are just people minus the physical self. Nothing to be afraid of. If anything, I get excited. If I see a spirit, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. So I just have a different experience because I see it as a story that I'm about to hear of somebody's life. If I see a spirit, I'm all about it. Don't be afraid of them. They're us.
Yeah, right.
So, Joe, thank you for being here. I did want to mention Stephen Simon is a friend of ours, and Somewhere in Time, it was a depiction of his version of heaven, how he saw it back then. And the first movie that I saw where it clicked in my head, I'm like, that makes sense, where the loved ones, Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour were reunited at the end, and it was beautiful, and it made so much sense to me. So if somebody needs a movie that sort of reminds you that love transcends all, check out one of Stephen Simon's excellent movies, but Somewhere in Time's my favorite. What was the other one? What Dreams May Come, or something along those lines with Robin Williams. Never mind. You don't remember anything. I got it. No. So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Love having you on the show. Hope Sophia's okay. You might want to check in with her. Tell her not to call when mommy and daddy are making podcasts in the future. And to all of my listeners out there, thank you for tuning in to The Dead Life. Until next week, I'm Allison Dubois. And to all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.